All right, guys, today should be a pretty fun day because I've got a new toy to test out. This is an all-wheel drive, dual suspension electric scooter, specifically the SX10 from a company called Leoout. And until they reached out to me for testing, I didn't even know a product like this existed. When I think of an electric scooter, I think of a single motor one with no suspension that's used mostly in urban environments. But this thing is totally different. On top of the dual motors and the dual suspension, we've also got disc brakes as well as off-road tires. And as you can tell from all this dirt, I've already put this thing through its paces. Now, the first place I tested this scooter was at my buddy Gavin's house because he has this really steep trail behind his property and none of my electric bikes have been able to make it up so far. But I thought with the dual motors and the dual suspension, this scooter's got a chance. It's got it, it's got it. So we already know that this scooter can go more places than my electric bikes, but I was trying to think of what else you would need to know if you were in the market for an off-road scooter. Now, if you're like me, you would want to know what the top speed is, what the range is, how good it is off-road, how good it is on-road, and how much fun it is. So let's go through those one at a time. But before we do that, I should probably hit this thing with a pressure washer so that I can show you the features. So let's do that. All right, guys, so I'm not going to go over every function on this scooter. That would take far too long. For that, you can check out the Leoout website. I'll put a link in the description below. Just going over the basics, you start off with a key. Not all of my electric vehicles have a key, so that's pretty cool. Once you turn it on, you do get a voltage reading right here, and then you can go ahead and power up the computer. Once the computer's powered up, you really only have these two buttons. Using the mode button here, we can cycle through the three different factory set speeds. There's a ton of other stuff that this computer can do. Again, check out the website if you're interested in that. You've got the eco or turbo button right here, which is really just going to be slow or fast. In eco mode, you are limited to 15 miles per hour, but of course your battery will last a lot longer. You also have a single or dual motor function right here, which is exactly as it sounds. We've got our throttle up at the top here. We do have brakes on the right and on the left. Over here on the left, we've got our headlight switch. You also have turn signals, which are pretty cool. And then below the turn signals, we've got our horn. Now for these brakes, these are disc brakes, but they are not hydraulic disc. They are cable actuated disc. It probably doesn't make a huge difference with such small wheels. You do have two charging ports right here, but it comes with two chargers, so you can go ahead and charge through both of those ports at the same time. I've already mentioned the dual motors and the dual suspension. The only thing that's interesting, the suspension here, it seems to be fairly basic air shocks, and unfortunately, there's no Schrader valve that I can find anywhere on them, so they're non-adjustable. They are a little bit stiff for me. I weigh 160 pounds, and it seems like most of these electric vehicles that I test are dialed in for someone who weighs probably closer to 200, maybe up to 220 pounds. Still works for me, it's just a little bit on the stiff side. So for the first test, I'm going to take this thing on an off-road trail near my house, see how well it does off-road. We're then going to hit the pavement and do a top speed run. But before I can do that, I have to figure out how I'm going to mount some cameras to this thing. All right, I've got a little mount made up for the camera. So let's hit the road. All right, power on, mode 3, turbo on, dual. Let's go. All right, let's see how this does on the trail. All right, so we're going about 25 miles an hour on that trail. Let's see what we've got for top speed. 30, 35, 40. All right, so we just put 13 miles on the scooter. Some of it was off-road, but most of it was on-road. We were at 3 bars out of the initial 5 that we started off with on the battery pack. One thing that I noticed was that as the battery was dropping, I wasn't losing any power. On my e-bikes, as the battery drops, you'll notice that your top speed goes from like 32 to 30 to 28 to 26 and just keeps dropping as the battery drops. Even when we were at about half battery life, which is where we're at now, I was still able to do about 40 miles an hour when it was flat. We did have one long hill, and on the way down I got it up to 44. It would have gone quite a bit faster, but I backed off. On the way up, I was assuming that I was only going to be able to maintain maybe 20 miles per hour. It maintained 30 the whole way up with no problem. So it has a decent amount of power to it. All right, so let's finish this video with the 5 things I talked about earlier. Top speed, around 40 miles an hour, a little bit faster if you're going downhill, a little bit slower if you're going uphill. The on-road capabilities, fantastic. It's as smooth as I was expecting. I could ride this thing for 30 miles without being annoyed, I think. Off-road capabilities, better than I was expecting. The suspension is definitely a little bit stiffer than I would like it, but I would rather that than have it be a little bit too soft. So I would say if you're maybe 180 to 220 pounds, it'd be dialed in for exactly where you're at. As far as the range goes, I'm not exactly sure because I don't really like running the lithium batteries below 20%. We're over 50% now indicated. I would have no problems trying that 13-mile loop again. I would probably lose power on the way back at least a little bit. So I would imagine somewhere in that probably 20-mile range if you're going to be a mixture of on-road, off-road, or uphill, downhill, and you're going to be an all-wheel drive, maxing out with the turbo. If you're going to be trying to maximize your range, I have no reason to believe that you wouldn't be able to make it the 43 miles, but again, you're going to be in eco mode with just the rear wheel drive, and so you're maxing out at around 15 miles per hour. The last thing was fun. This thing's more fun than I was expecting, and that is because its off-road capability is better than I was expecting. Full disclosure, Leoout did give me this scooter for free for testing, but they put absolutely no restrictions on what I should say. So that's it. Hopefully this video was helpful. See you guys later.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.